I thought leaving my marriage would set me free. But the silence in my new apartment started whispering a truth I didn't want to hear. And then my phone buzzed. It was a notification I wish I had never opened. My ex-husband smiling again, living a life I destroyed. That was the moment everything shattered, and I realized I wasn't free. I was the one who broke us. The apartment was too quiet. Clara Morgan sat in the center of her new sofa, a sleek, modern thing that felt as impersonal as a hotel lobby. At 36, this sterile space was the physical manifestation of her freedom. It was everything she thought she wanted. Now, the silence felt less like peace and more like a punishment. The only light came from the city outside her window, a panorama of 1,000 other lives, 1,000 other windows, each one feeling more lived in than her own. Her gaze drifted, unfocused, across the room until it landed on a pale, rectangular ghost on the opposite wall. A patch of paint slightly brighter than the rest, where a large photograph had hung for 8 years. The ghost of her marriage, a memory, warm and vivid, surfaced through the chill of the present. She was in their old kitchen, the one with the slightly warped floorboards near the sink. The air was thick with the scent of garlic and rosemary from a roast chicken. Owen was trying to wrestle the cork out of a bottle of wine, his brow furrowed in mock serious concentration. She was laughing, leaning against the counter, teasing him about his lack of finesse. "It's a twist off, you Philistine," she'd said, and he'd looked up, a playful glint in his hazel eyes. "Where's the adventure in that?" he'd retorted, finally popping the cork with a triumphant flourish. He poured her a glass, his hand brushing hers, a simple touch that once sent a current of warmth through her. Now, in the silence, she could almost feel the ghost of that warmth. She could see the photograph that used to hang on that blank wall, the two of them on a windswept beach in Cornwall, tangled together on a blanket, laughing so hard they were almost crying. The memory was so sharp it was a physical ache. Her phone buzzed on the chrome coffee table, a violent intrusion. She flinched. It was a social media notification. "People you may know. Owen Morgan." Her heart, a sluggish and heavy thing in her chest, gave a painful lurch. A voice in her head, the one that had gotten her through the divorce, screamed at her to put it down. "Don't do this to yourself." But a stronger, more desperate impulse won. Her thumb, trembling slightly, tapped the screen. His profile was different. It was no longer the private, barely updated page he maintained for work and family. It was alive. His profile picture was new. He was wearing a flannel shirt she didn't recognize. His hair was a little longer, and he was smiling. Not the tired, patient smile that had become so common in their last year, but a real, easy, crinkle-eyed smile that reached his eyes. He looked like the man she'd married, another memory, cold and sharp, sliced through the warmth of the first. The dreaded dripping tap. Drip, drip, drip. It had been the soundtrack to their disintegration. She'd come home from a terrible day at work, her nerves already frayed. The sound was a tiny, insistent hammer against her skull. "Owen, the tap!" "I'm going to lose my mind." He'd been on the sofa, going over spreadsheets, his glasses perched on the end of his nose. He looked up, his eyes weary. "I know, Clara. I'm sorry. This project is killing me. I'll get to it on Saturday, I promise. It's always this weekend." She'd snapped, the words coming out harsher than she intended. "It's a 5-minute job. Do you have any idea how that sound just grates on me? It feels like you don't even listen." He had taken off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "I do listen," he'd said, his voice quiet, defeated. "I hear it, but I also hear you. And this isn't about the tap, is it?" What's really wrong? But she hadn't wanted to be understood in that moment. She had wanted to be right. She had wanted a villain, and his calm logic had made him the perfect candidate. Scrolling through his profile now felt like picking at a wound. There was a picture from a month ago. Owen on a rugged hiking trail, a heavy backpack on his shoulders, pointing at a distant peak with a look of pure, unadulterated joy. He looked stronger, more solid. He looked free. The caption read, "Early morning on the Ridgeway. Forgotten how much I missed this." Then, her breath caught in her throat. A picture from 2 weeks ago. He was in a bright, messy art studio, a pottery wheel in front of him. His hands, his forearms, and an old t-shirt were splattered with dark clay. He was laughing, his head thrown back, at something the person next to him had said. The person next to him was a woman. She had warm, laughing eyes and dark hair tied in a messy but elegant bun. She wasn't a supermodel. She was normal, pretty in an unassuming way, happy. There was a casual space between them in the photo, but their bodies were angled towards each other. A silent, easy intimacy in their posture. The caption was simple: "Great class at the community studio." A mess, but a fun one. A violent, searing jealousy, hot and acidic, burned through Clara. It wasn't just that there was another woman. It was that this woman was witnessing a version of Owen that Clara had systematically dismantled, the joyful, light-hearted, adventurous man she had fallen in love with. The man she had buried under a mountain of complaints, resentments, and a desperate, unamiable discontent. She had blamed him for becoming quiet and withdrawn, never realizing she was the one who had silenced him. Another memory surfaced, unbidden. A random Tuesday night. She had been struck down with a terrible flu, shivering under a mountain of blankets. She was miserable, but also angry. Owen was working late again. The narrative in her head was solidifying. He was absent. He was unreliable. He didn't care. She heard his key in the lock around p.m. Resentment flared. He finally decided to come home. He didn't call out. She heard him shuffling in the kitchen, the soft clink of pots. Minutes later, he entered the bedroom, still in his coat, smelling of cold night air. In his hands was a steaming bowl and a paper bag. "Hey, you," he whispered, his voice rough with his own fatigue. He placed the bowl on the nightstand. It was her favorite spicy lentil soup from the little family-run deli across town, a 25-minute drive in the opposite direction from his office. "I know your throat is killing you," he said, gently placing a cold bottle of the specific ginger ale she loved next to the soup. "This should help." He felt her forehead with his cool hand, his touch infinitely gentle. "You're still burning up." He didn't complain about the drive, or the late hour, or his own exhaustion. He just took care of her. She had thanked him, of course, but internally, she'd already filed the memory away under bare minimum. She had been so focused on the times he wasn't there that she had become blind to the profound love in the times he was. The sob that broke from Clara was a guttural, wrenching sound torn from a place so deep inside her she didn't know it existed. She doubled over, the phone clattering to the floor, as the dam of her pride finally, completely shattered. She saw it all with horrifying, crystalline clarity. The freedom she had craved was just an escape from the hard, beautiful, mundane work of building a life with someone. She had been so busy searching for some grand, cinematic passion that she had trampled the quiet, devoted, everyday love she already had. She had mistaken the comfort of a secure, knowing love for boredom. She had been the architect of her own emptiness. The regret was no longer a quiet whisper. It was a tsunami, pulling her under, drowning her in the truth. Days bled into one another. The silence in her apartment became a taunt. She tried to go through the motions of her new independent life, but every activity felt hollow. A coffee alone in a cafe, a walk in the park. It all felt like she was playing a part. The part of Clara, the liberated divorcee. And she was a terrible actress. One Saturday, seeking solace, she went to the botanical gardens, a place they had often visited together in the early days. The air was sweet with the scent of blooming jasmine and damp earth. She walked the familiar paths, the memories a bittersweet accompaniment to every turn. And then she saw him, Owen. He was sitting on their bench, the one tucked away near the rose garden, with a view of the pond. He had a sketchpad in his lap, his hand moving with a quiet, focused intensity. A small, private smile touched his lips as he concentrated. He looked whole. The quiet sadness that had seemed a permanent part of his aura in their final months was gone, replaced by a palpable, radiating sense of peace. Her feet moved of their own volition, carrying her towards him as if drawn by a magnet. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic wild bird. Owen. He looked up, startled. The recognition in his eyes was followed by a flicker of surprise, which then settled into a cautious, polite warmth. There was no anger, no bitterness. That, somehow, was the most painful reaction of all. Clara. Hi. He closed his sketchbook slowly. It's a surprise to see you here. The formality of his words carved a canyon between them. I was just walking, she stammered, her composure fracturing. Her eyes drank him in, the new lines of contentment on his face, the ease in his posture. I saw your pictures, the hiking, the pottery. You look really happy. The words felt like shards of glass in her throat. He nodded, a soft, genuine smile touching his lips. I am. It took a while. A long while, but I'm finally breathing again. The simple, honest confirmation was a dagger to her heart. All the rehearsed speeches, all the proud arguments, evaporated from her mind. Her carefully constructed composure crumbled into dust. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring his beloved, familiar face. Her voice broke. A fragile thing. I was so wrong. The confession was ripped from the deepest, most wounded part of her soul. I thought I wanted freedom, but all I did was, I let go of the only real thing I ever had. She was crying openly now, the tears she had held back for a year finally falling, hot and shameful. I miss you. I miss the way you'd bring me soup from Luigi's when I was sick. I miss the sound of you humming old rock songs in the shower. I miss arguing with you about what to watch on TV. I even miss that stupid, dripping tap. She was laying herself bare, every ounce of pride sacrificed at his feet. I'm so sorry, Owen, for everything. For not seeing you. For not valuing you. For being so blind. Owen's own eyes glistened, mirroring her pain. He looked at her, and for a long, suspended moment, she saw the ghost of their entire history pass behind his eyes, the dizzying heights of their early love, the comfortable warmth of the middle years, the slow, painful erosion, and the final, crushing disappointment of the end. He reached out and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, familiar, and it sent a violent, desperate shock of hope through her entire system. This was it. The connection. The second chance. Clara, he said softly, his voice thick with a shared sorrow. I heard every word, and I believe you, and I forgive you. Her heart soared, a wild, foolish bird taking flight. He forgave her, but, he continued, and that single, quiet word felt like the slamming of a heavy, final door. Forgiveness isn't the same as a new beginning. He squeezed her hand gently, a gesture of profound tenderness that was also a farewell. That love we had, it was like a beautiful, fragile piece of pottery. We both held it, and then we both dropped it. I spent a long, long time down on my knees, trying to glue every single piece back together. And I did, for a while. But the cracks, they were always there. I realized I couldn't spend my whole life holding my breath, afraid to pick it up, afraid it would shatter again and cut us both even deeper. Some breaks, they changed the structure forever. He stood up, his gaze filled with a profound and heartbreaking sadness, but also a firm, unshakable resolution. I will always care about you, Clara. I will always, always cherish the good years. They were the best of my life. But our story, that chapter is over. I've finally turned the page. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, hope you find your happiness. You deserve to be happy. You really do. He leaned forward and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to her forehead. It was a kiss of absolution, a farewell, of a love that was now a memory. It was the most devastating touch she had ever experienced. Then he turned and walked away down the gravel path, the sunlight dappling through the canopy of leaves onto his shoulders. He didn't look back. Clara stood frozen, the warmth of his kiss on her skin already cooling, evaporating into the gentle breeze. She watched him until he turned a corner past the hydrangeas and disappeared from her view, taking the last, fading echo of their life together with him. The realization did not come as a thunderclap, but as a quiet, devastating dawn that slowly bleached the color from the world. The message was not about winning him back. It was about the burden of regret, a weight she would have to learn to carry. The second chance she so desperately needed was not with him, but with herself. A chance to forgive herself for her catastrophic blindness, to learn from the ruin of her pride, and to understand, in the most painful way possible, that the most precious freedom is not being alone, but being truly, deeply, and unconditionally seen and loved, and being brave enough to offer that same love in return, without reservation. A single, silent tear traced the path of his kiss on her forehead. It held the weight of 1,000 lost sunsets, a million unsaid apologies, and the profound, echoing silence of a love that was, forever and always, gone.